The crystal champagne flute caught the light from the country club's chandelier as my wife Danielle raised it high above her head. Her perfectly manicured fingers gripped the stem with the same confidence she'd once reserved for our wedding photos. Now, that confidence was aimed like a loaded weapon at our marriage. Everyone! Danielle's voice cut through the chatter of Boston's elite social circle. The fundraiser for the children's hospital had been winding down, but suddenly every conversation stopped. Designer dresses rustled as heads turned toward our table. "I have an announcement!" I should have seen this coming. For weeks, Danielle had been growing bolder, more reckless with her comments about our marriage. What started as eye rolls during my stories had escalated to outright mockery in front of our friends. She'd begun making jokes about starting over and bragging about the attention she received from married men in her event planning business. But this was a new low, even for her. "I'm celebrating my own divorce," she declared, her voice carrying across the ballroom like a battle cry. The champagne sloshed dangerously close to the rim as she gestured wildly. "To freedom, to new beginnings, to finally admitting that some marriages are just expired." The reaction was immediate and exactly what she'd hoped for. Her inner circle erupted in cheers and applause. Melissa Chan, the social media influencer who documented every moment of their lives, actually stood up and whooped. Oliver Burke, the smarmy lawyer who'd been sniffing around Danielle for months, raised his own glass with theatrical enthusiasm. "You go, girl!" Sabrina Lane shouted from across the table, her blonde hair bouncing as she clapped. "It's about time you put yourself first." That's when the irony hit me like a freight train. Sabrina Lane, cheering for my wife's declaration of independence, had no idea that Danielle had been putting herself first for months, specifically, first in line for Sabrina's husband, Gregory. I'd known about the affair for 3 weeks now. Not suspected, known. The evidence was sitting in a manila folder in my home office, meticulously organized like the commercial lease agreements I negotiated for a living. Calendar overlaps showing planning sessions that coincided with Gregory's business trips to the city. Expense reports from our joint credit card showing romantic dinners at upscale restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel charges on afternoons when Danielle claimed to be scouting venues for her event planning company. The smoking gun had been a text message I'd seen on her unlocked iPad. "Hope Sabrina doesn't suspect anything, can't wait for our next business meeting at the Marriott." But I'd stayed quiet, gathered evidence, waited for the right moment. As the applause faded and conversations resumed, I felt every eye at our table watching me. They expected anger, tears, maybe a dramatic storming out. Instead, I took a slow sip of my whiskey and turned to Sabrina Lane, who was still glowing with vicarious excitement over my wife's public humiliation of our marriage. "Why are you laughing, Sabrina?" I asked, my voice calm and conversational. "She'll be back with your husband before the night ends." The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Sabrina's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. The color drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. Around the table, conversations faded mid-sentence. Oliver Burke's mouth actually fell open. Melissa Chan's phone, which had been recording everything for her social media followers, trembled in her suddenly unsteady hand. But it was Danielle's reaction that satisfied me most. The triumphant smile melted off her face like makeup in the rain. Her eyes darted frantically between me and Sabrina, calculating damage, searching for an escape route that didn't exist. What did you just say?" Sabrina whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant sounds of the party continuing around us. I stood up, straightened my tie, and looked down at the table full of people who'd spent the evening laughing at my expense. I said exactly what I meant. "Enjoy the rest of your evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have some paperwork to handle." The walk across the ballroom felt like a victory lap. Behind me, I could hear Sabrina's voice rising in pitch as she began interrogating Danielle. Other guests were starting to notice the commotion at our table. Phones were coming out. This was about to become the social media event of the season, and for once, I wouldn't be the punchline. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my car in the country club parking lot, scrolling through my phone to find Sabrina's email address. I prepared for this moment weeks ago. The manila envelope sat on my passenger seat, containing printed copies of credit card statements, hotel receipts, screenshots of text messages, and a detailed timeline of Gregory and Danielle's affair. I attached the photos to an email and typed a simple message. Sabrina, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. The evidence speaks for itself. Victor. I hit send and started my car. Through the country club's windows, I could see animated gestures and what looked like a full-scale argument erupting at our former table. My phone buzzed with incoming texts, probably from Danielle, maybe from some of the others who were starting to piece together what had just happened. I ignored them all and drove home to my empty house, where divorce papers were already waiting to be filed. The real show was just beginning. The next morning brought a deluge of chaos that exceeded even my expectations. My phone had been buzzing nonstop since 6 a.m. with calls and texts from numbers I recognized and several I didn't. The story of last night's confrontation was spreading through our social circle like wildfire, and everyone wanted to know what I knew. I was sitting in my home office reviewing the divorce papers my attorney had prepared weeks ago, when Danielle finally came home. I heard her car in the driveway, followed by the slam of the front door that rattled the windows. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floors with the staccato rhythm of barely contained fury. "Victor!" she screamed from the foyer. "Victor, get down here right now!" I took my time finishing the paragraph I was reading before walking downstairs. Danielle stood in our living room like a hurricane that had blown itself out. Her designer dress from last night was wrinkled, her makeup smeared, and her usually perfect hair looked like she'd been running her hands through it for hours. "You snake!" she hissed as soon as she saw me. "What did you tell Sabrina?" "The truth," I replied calmly, settling into my favorite armchair. "Would you prefer I had lied?" "You don't know anything. You can't prove anything." But even as she said it, her voice cracked with uncertainty. I pulled out my phone and opened my photo gallery. Hotel Marriott downtown, March 15th, 2:30 p.m. You told me you were scouting the venue for the Morrison wedding that day. Funny thing is, I called the Morrison family yesterday. They booked their venue 6 months ago. Want to see the receipt? Danielle's face went white. "You've been spying on me?" "I've been paying attention to our joint credit card statements. You know, the adult responsibility you've apparently forgotten about while playing house with Gregory Lane." I scrolled to another photo. Chez Laurent, March 22nd, 8 p.m. Gregory's American Express, table for two, wine pairing menu, the works. Must have been some business meeting. "Those could be with anyone, including the text messages?" I interrupted, pulling up the screenshots I'd taken from her iPad. "Hope Sabrina doesn't suspect anything. Can't wait for our next business meeting at the Marriott. Ring any bells, sweetheart?" The fight went out of her like air from a punctured balloon. She sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "How long have you known?" she whispered. 3 weeks. Long enough to document everything. Long enough to move our joint assets into an account you can't access. Long enough to change the locks on this house, which, by the way, will happen this afternoon. Her head snapped up. "You can't do that. This is my house too." "Actually, I can. Misuse of joint funds for an extramarital affair gives me legal grounds to secure marital assets. My attorney was very thorough in explaining the process." I stood up and walked to the window, where I could see Mrs. Lipman from next door pretending to water her plants while obviously trying to eavesdrop. "Besides, you said it yourself last night. You're celebrating your divorce. Consider this my contribution to the festivities." My phone rang. The caller ID showed Sabrina Lane's name. I answered on speaker. "Victor?" Sabrina's voice was hoarse like she'd been crying all night. "Is it true? All of it?" Every word, I confirmed, watching Danielle's face crumple. The timeline I sent you covers the last 2 months. There might be more, but that's what I could document. That bastard, Sabrina sobbed. He denied everything at first, but when I showed him the receipts, God, Victor, I'm so sorry, I had no idea. Neither did I until recently. What are you going to do? I threw him out last night, changed the locks this morning. My attorney says I have grounds for divorce based on adultery. The prenup he made me sign becomes void if he cheats. I couldn't help but smile. Good for you, Sabrina. You deserve better. After I hung up, Danielle stared at me with something approaching respect for the first time in months. You planned this, all of it. I planned to protect myself when my marriage inevitably exploded, I corrected. You're the one who lit the fuse last night with your little toast. I just made sure I wasn't standing in the blast radius. What happens now? I handed her a manila envelope. Divorce papers, no fault filing, but with documentation of adultery and misuse of joint funds. You can keep your business, your car, and your personal belongings. Everything else stays with me until the courts sort it out. She opened the envelope with shaking hands. Victor, please, we can work this out. It was just a mistake, a midlife crisis thing. Gregory doesn't mean anything to me. Funny, that's exactly what he told Sabrina about you. The color drained from her face again. What? Sabrina recorded your boyfriend's confession last night. Apparently, you were just a bit of fun and nothing serious. His exact words, according to her. Seems like you weren't as special as you thought. Danielle's phone buzzed with an incoming text. She glanced at it, and her face crumpled. Melissa's posting about last night on her blog. She's calling it The Toast That Broke 2 Marriages. Catchy title, I observed. Should be good for her engagement numbers. This will ruin my business. Half my clients came through Sabrina's connections. Should have thought of that before you started sleeping with her husband. My phone rang again. This time it was Janice Harper, my office manager and the closest thing I had to a best friend in this mess. Victor, honey, are you okay? The whole story is blowing up on social media. Melissa Chan's followers are going crazy with the gossip. I'm fine, Janice. Better than fine, actually. Good for you, sweetheart. That woman never deserved you anyway. Listen, I'm forwarding you some emails. Apparently, word is getting around the commercial real estate community about what happened. A few people want to express their support. After I hung up, I looked at Danielle, who was scrolling through her own phone with increasing desperation. How many clients have canceled so far? 4, she whispered. The Morrison wedding, the Chen anniversary party, the Burke family reunion, and the Riverside Country Club charity gala. All connected to Sabrina's social circle, I'm guessing. She nodded miserably. Victor, please. I'll do anything. I'll end it with Gregory. I'll go to counseling. You'll sign the divorce papers and find somewhere else to live, I interrupted. The locksmith will be here at 3 p.m. I suggest you pack whatever you need and find a hotel. Or maybe Gregory has room on his couch, assuming Sabrina didn't burn all his belongings. I walked toward the stairs, then paused. Oh, and Danielle? Next time you want to celebrate your divorce, you might want to make sure you're actually divorced first. Public humiliation is a dish best served when you're not the one eating it. The sound of her crying followed me up the stairs, but for the first time in months, it wasn't my problem to solve. By Monday morning, the story had taken on a life of its own. Melissa Chan's blog post about the toast that broke 2 marriages had been shared over 10,000 times across various social media platforms. The comments section had become a battlefield between people defending Danielle's right to happiness and others calling her a home wrecker who got what she deserved. I was reading through some of the more entertaining responses while drinking my morning coffee when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Oliver Burke standing on my front porch, looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Victor, he said when I opened the door, can we talk? Depends. Are you here as Danielle's lawyer or as her friend? As someone who thinks this has gone far enough. I stepped aside to let him in. Oliver had always been a pompous ass, but he'd never been stupid. If he was here, it meant Danielle was getting desperate. "Coffee?" I offered, leading him to the kitchen. "Please." He sat down at the breakfast bar and loosened his tie. "Look, Victor, I know you're angry." "I'm not angry," I interrupted, pouring him a mug. "Angry would imply I still care enough about Danielle to have strong emotions about her choices. I'm simply protecting my interests. The social media attention is destroying her business. Her choices destroyed her business. The social media attention is just documenting the consequences." Oliver sipped his coffee and grimaced. I'd never been much of a coffee maker, but it was better than what he deserved. "She's lost 8 clients since Friday night. Her biggest corporate contract just canceled this morning." "The Riverside Development Group?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "That was a $250,000 annual contract for corporate events and property launches. They said they couldn't risk being associated with the scandal. Apparently, their board of directors includes 3 couples, and the wives all follow Melissa Chan's blog." I couldn't help but laugh. "So Danielle's affair is now a liability for a major real estate development company. That's got to be a first." "This isn't funny, Victor. She's facing financial ruin. She's facing the consequences of her actions. There's a difference." Oliver set down his coffee mug with more force than necessary. "What do you want? Money? A bigger settlement? Just name your price to make this stop." "Make what stop? I haven't done anything except tell the truth. You could ask people to stop sharing the story. You could tell Melissa Chan to take down the blog post. I could also ask the sun to stop shining, but that's not going to happen either." I leaned against the counter and studied Oliver's face. "Besides, why would I want to help the woman who publicly humiliated our marriage, or her boyfriend, who's been lying to his wife for months? Because you're a decent man who doesn't want to see people destroyed over a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk from the store. This was a calculated betrayal that went on for months. And frankly, Oliver, I'm not sure why you care so much about Danielle's welfare unless you're hoping to be next in line." The flush that crept up Oliver's neck told me I'd hit the target. "That's not... I'm just trying to help a friend." "Right. Well, here's some free advice for your friend. The best way to stop a scandal is to stop feeding it. Every time Danielle calls someone to complain about the unfairness of it all, every time she posts a cryptic social media message about moving forward, every time she sends a proxy like you to negotiate on her behalf, she keeps the story alive." My phone buzzed with a text from Janice. "Turn on Channel 5, now." I grabbed the remote and switched on the local news. The anchor was wrapping up a story about a charity fundraiser scandal. The incident at Friday night's Children's Hospital fundraiser has raised questions about the appropriateness of personal drama at charitable events. Several major donors have expressed concerns about the distraction from the evening's intended purpose. Oliver and I watched in silence as they showed brief footage from the country club, including a shot of our table during Danielle's toast. Someone had recorded the whole thing and sold it to the local news. "Jesus," Oliver muttered. "It's on television now." "Welcome to the 21st century," I said, switching off the TV, "where every public meltdown becomes content. You have to do something to stop this." "I don't have to do anything, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do." I walked to my laptop and opened my email. I'm going to send a statement to Melissa Chan for her blog. Something classy and dignified that closes the door on this chapter of my life. I typed quickly, "To everyone who has reached out with support during this difficult time, thank you. While I appreciate the concern, I ask that you respect everyone's privacy as we move forward. My focus now is on rebuilding my life and learning from this experience. I wish everyone involved the chance to do the same. Victor Sloan." "There," I said, hitting send. "Public, gracious, and final. If Danielle wants to keep this story alive after that, she'll have to do it without any help from me." Oliver read the statement over my shoulder. That's actually pretty generous. I'm not trying to destroy her, Oliver. I'm just not going to save her from herself anymore. After Oliver left, I sat in my quiet house and realized something had shifted. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt genuinely at peace. Not happy exactly, but calm. Centered, ready to move forward. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Detective Eddie Doyle, an old friend from my college days who now worked for the Boston PD. "Victor, you son of a gun," Eddie's gravelly voice boomed through the speaker. "I heard about what happened at the country club. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Eddie. Better than fine." "Good. Listen, I'm calling because a mutual friend mentioned you might need some advice about protecting yourself during divorce proceedings." "What kind of advice?" "The kind that keeps bitter ex-spouses from making false accusations when they realize they're not getting what they want. You'd be surprised how often that happens when someone's facing financial ruin and looking for leverage." I felt a chill run down my spine. "You think Danielle would—" "I think desperate people do desperate things. Just be smart about it. Don't meet with her alone, keep records of all your interactions, and if she starts making threats, document everything." "Thanks for the heads up, Eddie. That's what friends are for. And Victor? From what I hear, you handled this whole situation like a class act. Don't let anyone tell you different." After I hung up, I looked around my empty house and realized that for the first time in months, it felt like home again. Quiet, peaceful, and mine. But Eddie's warning echoed in my mind. If Danielle was facing financial ruin and social exile, how far would she go to try to salvage something from the wreckage? I had a feeling I was about to find out. The answer to my question came on Wednesday evening in the form of Gregory Lane standing on my doorstep, looking like he'd been sleeping in his car for 3 days. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and there was a desperate edge in his eyes that set off every alarm bell in my head. "We need to talk," he said, without preamble. "No, we don't." I started to close the door, but he stuck his foot in the gap. "Please, Victor, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let him in, but I kept my phone in my hand and made sure he saw me open the voice recorder app. Eddie's warning about desperate people was still fresh in my mind. "You're recording this?" Gregory asked, noticing the phone. "I'm protecting myself. Something you should have thought about before you started sleeping with my wife." He flinched, but didn't argue. "Look, I know you have every right to hate me. What I did was wrong. But this has to stop." "What has to stop?" "I haven't done anything to you. The social media campaign, the public humiliation, turning our wives against each other. I told the truth to one person. Everything else has been the natural consequence of your choices." I gestured for him to sit down but remained standing myself. "Besides, shouldn't you be talking to Danielle about this? You two seemed pretty cozy making plans behind your spouses' backs." Gregory's face darkened. "Danielle's lost her mind. She's calling me 20 times a day, showing up at my office, telling everyone who'll listen that we're going to be together now that we're both getting divorced." "And you're not?" "Of course not. It was just closeness, Victor. A stupid, meaningless affair that got out of hand." "Funny, that's not how she tells it." "What do you mean?" I pulled up Melissa Chan's latest blog post on my phone. "According to this interview Danielle gave yesterday, you two were soulmates who found each other despite impossible circumstances, and you're planning to build a new life together once the dust settles." Gregory's face went pale as I read the quotes. "She said that? Publicly?" 5,000 shares and counting, complete with photos of you two at various restaurants, courtesy of her social media collection. Jesus Christ. Gregory slumped into the chair, his head in his hands. "She's completely delusional. I told her it was over the night of the party. I told her it was never serious to begin with." "Then why are you here talking to me instead of her?" "Because she won't listen. She's convinced that now that we're both free, we can be together openly. She's already looking at apartments for us to share. I couldn't help but laugh. So let me get this straight. You came here to ask me to help you get rid of the woman you were cheating on your wife with? I came here to ask you to help me make all of this go away. The media attention, the gossip, the social media posts. You started this, you can end it. I started this? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. I started this by existing while you and my wife decided to have an affair? You know what I mean. That comment at the party, sending the evidence to Sabrina. Ah, there it is. I set my phone down on the coffee table, making sure the recording was still running. You're not here to apologize or make amends. You're here to blame me for the consequences of your actions. I'm here to find a solution that works for everyone. The solution is simple, Gregory. Live with the choices you made. Accept that actions have consequences. Stop trying to manipulate your way out of the mess you created. You don't understand. Sabrina's taking everything. The house, the business, the cars. Her father's law firm is representing her, and they're pushing hard. I'll be lucky to walk away with my clothes. Good for Sabrina. Sounds like she's finally seeing you clearly. Gregory stood up abruptly, his desperation morphing into anger. You sanctimonious bastard. You act like you're so much better than everyone else, but you're just a small-time commercial real estate nobody who got lucky with his revenge fantasy. And you're a cheating coward who's mad that his victim fought back instead of rolling over. I picked up my phone and stopped the recording. I think we're done here. This isn't over, Victor. You think you've won, but you have no idea what Danielle's capable of when she's cornered. Is that a threat? It's a warning. She's talking about going to the police, claiming you've been stalking her, harassing her, threatening her business contacts. She thinks if she can make you look like the bad guy, she can salvage her reputation. I felt that chill again, the same one I'd experienced during Eddie's phone call. And you're telling me this because? Because I don't want to get dragged down with her when she inevitably crashes and burns. And because despite everything, I don't think you deserve to have your life destroyed by false accusations. After Gregory left, I immediately called Eddie Doyle and sent him the recording of our conversation. Then I called my attorney and scheduled an emergency meeting for the next morning. If Danielle was planning to escalate this into false accusations, I needed to be prepared. But first, I had one more call to make. Sabrina, it's Victor. I think we need to talk. The meeting with Sabrina took place at a quiet coffee shop downtown, far from the suburban gossip mill that had been feeding on our story for the past week. She looked tired, but determined, like a woman who'd been through hell and come out stronger on the other side. Thank you for calling me, she said as we settled into a corner booth. Gregory told me about his visit to your house. Did he also tell you about Danielle's latest plan? Sabrina's expression hardened. The police thing? Yes. It's despicable, but not surprising. She's been calling me nonstop, trying to convince me that you're some kind of master manipulator who orchestrated this whole thing. And what do you think? I think you're a man who found out his wife was cheating and handled it better than most people would have. She stirred her coffee absently. I also think Danielle's about to make a very big mistake. What do you mean? She called me this morning with a proposition. She wants me to back up her story about you being threatening and unstable. In exchange, she'll provide evidence of Gregory's other affairs. Other affairs? Apparently, I wasn't his first victim, and you weren't his either. Danielle's been keeping records of his infidelities for months, thinking she could use them as leverage to get him to leave me. The pieces were starting to fall into place. She was blackmailing him. In a way, yes. And now she's trying to use the same information to blackmail me into helping her destroy you. What did you tell her? Sabrina smiled grimly. I told her I'd think about it. Then I called my attorney and had him set up a meeting with the district attorney's office. Attempted blackmail is a felony in Massachusetts. I stared at her in amazement. You're going to have her arrested? I'm going to give the DA everything I have and let them decide what charges are appropriate. But Victor, there's something else. Something you need to know before this goes any further." She pulled out her phone and opened a voice recording app. "Danielle doesn't know I've been recording our conversations since Monday. Listen to this." The recording was from that morning's phone call. Danielle's voice was clear and unmistakable. "I don't care if it's true or not, Sabrina. Victor humiliated me in front of everyone we know. He destroyed my business and my reputation. If I have to destroy his life to get mine back, that's exactly what I'm going to do. But filing false police reports won't be false if we both say the same thing. Who are they going to believe? Two respected members of the community, or one bitter ex-husband with a history of controlling behavior? What if they investigate and find out we're lying? They won't investigate if the story is convincing enough. Victor's been tracking my movements, going through my personal belongings, threatening my business contacts. All I need is for you to confirm that you witnessed some of it." The recording continued for another few minutes, with Danielle laying out an increasingly elaborate plan to frame me for stalking and harassment. By the time it ended, I felt sick to my stomach. "She's lost her mind," I said quietly. "She's desperate," Sabrina corrected, "and desperate people are dangerous." "What happens now?" "Now we finish this properly. My attorney is meeting with the DA this afternoon. They'll probably want to interview you as well, since you're the intended target of her plan." "And Gregory?" "Gregory's going to cooperate fully with whatever the authorities decide to do. He's terrified that Danielle will drag him down with her, and honestly, he should be." We sat in silence for a moment, both processing the magnitude of what Danielle had been planning. Finally, Sabrina reached across the table and touched my hand. "I'm sorry, Victor. For all of it. For not seeing what kind of person she really was. For not realizing what my husband was doing. For the role our friendship played in enabling this whole mess. You don't have anything to apologize for. We were both victims of their deception." "Maybe. But I should have seen the signs. The way she talked about you. The way she dismissed your feelings. The way she acted like your marriage was just an inconvenience to be managed. How long do you think it was going on? Longer than either of us realized, I think. I've been going through my credit card statements and Gregory's business expenses. There are charges going back almost 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies, deception, and betrayal while I'd been trying to save a marriage that was already over. The thought should have made me angry, but instead, I felt a strange sense of relief. It was over. All of it. My phone buzzed with a text from my attorney. "DA wants to meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring all documentation and recordings." "Looks like it's really happening," I told Sabrina, showing her the message. "Good. It's time someone held her accountable for her actions." "What about your divorce?" "My attorney says it should be straightforward now. Gregory's so terrified of criminal charges that he's agreed to everything I've asked for. I get the house, the business, and most of our assets. He gets to start over with nothing, which is exactly what he deserves." "And what will you do after?" "Rebuild. Start fresh. Maybe move somewhere new, where I'm not known as the woman whose husband cheated with her best friend." She smiled ruefully. "What about you?" "Same thing, I guess. My business is actually doing better than ever. Apparently, being the wronged husband in a viral scandal has made me sympathetic to a lot of potential clients. Who knew?" We finished our coffee and prepared to leave. As we stood up, Sabrina hesitated. "Victor, when this is all over, when the legal stuff is settled and the gossip fades, would you maybe want to have dinner sometime? As friends, I mean. People who survived the same disaster." I considered the offer. Sabrina was attractive, intelligent, and we'd certainly been through hell together. But the idea of dating someone from the wreckage of my marriage felt like asking for trouble. "Ask me again in 6 months," I said, "when we've both had time to figure out who we are without them." She smiled. "Fair enough." The next morning, I sat in the district attorney's office with my attorney and 2 prosecutors, walking them through the timeline of Danielle's affair, Gregory's visit to my house, and Sabrina's recordings of Danielle's blackmail attempt. They listened with professional interest, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. "Mr. Sloan," the lead prosecutor said when I'd finished, "based on what we've heard today and the evidence provided by Mrs. Lane, we have enough to charge your wife with attempted blackmail and conspiracy to file false police reports." "What does that mean in practical terms?" "It means she's looking at potential felony charges that could result in prison time if convicted. It also means that any attempt she makes to file false reports against you will be viewed in the context of this evidence. So she can't hurt me with lies anymore? Not without facing serious consequences herself." I walked out of the DA's office feeling lighter than I had in months. The legal system would handle Danielle's attempted revenge. My divorce would proceed without interference. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I could focus on rebuilding my life instead of just protecting it. That evening, I was sitting in my backyard with a beer, watching the sunset and planning my future, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Danielle's number. "Hello, Danielle." "Victor." Her voice was small, defeated. "I heard about the DA's office." "I imagine you did." "I never actually filed any false reports." "No, but you planned to, and you tried to blackmail Sabrina into helping you." I was desperate. My whole life fell apart." "Your whole life fell apart because of choices you made. The affair, the public humiliation at the party, the attempts at manipulation and blackmail. All of it was your decision." "I know. I know that now." She was crying, but I felt no urge to comfort her. "What happens to me now?" "That's up to the courts and you. But Danielle, this is the last conversation we're ever going to have. After today, all communication goes through our attorneys." "Victor, please." I hung up and blocked her number. Then I deleted all our photos from my phone, boxed up the last of her belongings that she'd never collected, and put them by the curb for donation pickup. The next morning, I woke up in my quiet house and realized that for the first time in months, I was genuinely happy. Not just relieved or vindicated, but actually happy. The story of the toast that broke 2 marriages would probably follow me for a while, but that was okay. I'd survived the worst betrayal of my life and come out stronger on the other side. As for Danielle and Gregory, they'd gotten exactly what they deserved: each other's chaos and the consequences of their choices. Sometimes the best revenge is simply